Protecting Main Street from Wall Street. It's Chris Hoffman with Money Unleashed.
How much money do you put into your checking account from work on a month-to-month basis? It has a high probability that with your investable assets, we can replace that paycheck.
It's time to put you back in control of your money.
You've worked for 35 years. It's time for you to not stress. It's time for you to enjoy and live the retirement you want to live.
It's Money Unleashed with Chris Hoffman.
This is Money Unleashed with Chris Hoffman at the Hoffman Financial Group, proud partners of the Georgia Bulldogs. Hoffman Financial Group can be reached at 404-341-6767. You can also find us online at unleashyourmoney.com. We talk about the importance of growth and protection when it comes to your financial plan, and we do that for good reason. Investopedia recently published an article on this topic saying that market volatility can upend your retirement plans. How do you protect yourself? Seems pretty straightforward. And it also mentioned a MetLife survey which found that a majority of retirement plan sponsors are actually worried about the ability of retired people or those less than 10 years from retirement to handle market volatility. So, Chris, that's the retirement red zone for a lot of folks, and no one wants to be losing ground when your savings need to last, do they?
Yeah, no, you don't. And the most basic way of looking at it is when you look at your investable assets in your 401k or whatever retirement accounts you've built and or brokerage, taxable money, and you look at it and you say, this is a substantial amount of money that I do not want to lose 20 or 30% of.
Yeah.
It's time to take action. You have to check the box on growth. I get it, folks. That's what we're here to do. You want to grow your money. You want to keep growing your money. You don't want to put it in the mattress, which everybody has been tempted to do over the past year since interest rates are up. But guess what? That party's coming to an end. Mm-hmm. We just talked about the labor market softening and the Fed being pressed into lowering interest rates, which, by the way, I've been saying this for the past 2 years since 2022. That works for retirees. Our retired clients love to get 4.5%, 5%. We've got structured notes paying 10%. This month, we had a structured note from an international investment bank that paid a 1-year note 10%. That's a high interest rate, and that was based on the Fed raising interest rates. If the Fed lowers interest rates, now where do you go to grow your money? Mm-hmm. You're pressed into the market. So before you get tempted to push more into the market, you've got to understand there are plenty of ways of growing your money, but you've got to add a protection rotation strategy to it. And I talk about this consistently on the air week over week. Protection rotation. Protection rotation should grow your money at a faster pace than a buy and hold strategy. You should be able to reasonably predict over the course of years when the market is in a bull market and heading up, and then before a recessionary period or down markets, be able to rotate and lower your risk profile, but still keep your money growing and keep that protected bucket poised to be reinvested at lower price points. Look at it this way, folks. You sell when the market is high, you buy when the market is low. Where is the market right now? Astronomically high.
Right.
I mean, every day we're looking at CNBC and Fox Business News and Bloomberg, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when they show individual stocks that are up 50% this year, CrowdStrike had a major outage that brought all Microsoft clients down, right? And Delta was one of them, and I think there's a pending lawsuit for that. Even with that catastrophe, they're up 78% this year.
Wow.
So you can't argue the fact that the markets are at an elevated level. Could it still grow? Yes, of course it can. So you don't pull everything out and tuck it in a pillow, but you rotate some of those gains or all of those gains out of the risk asset bucket and you roll it into something with a much lower standard deviation, which is measure of financial risk, or you roll it into something that is protected from market losses. With the ability, though, to rotate it back in if this market slides. Most money managers will talk about you invest in pieces. Let's say you break it into quarters. You take if you have a protected bucket, so a lot of folks out there have a lot of money market, a lot of CDs. Matter of fact, I met with a client last week that had 2 tranches of CDs maturing. Naturally, he's not going to get the same CD rate that he got in 2022.
Yeah.
So we've got to talk about, is now the time to rotate back into possibly large cap dividend stocks for dividends plus some growth? Or do we take that risk away and do something, for instance, in a structured note, which it does have risk to it. We can explain that to you in a meeting, but money market paying 4.5 or CDs paying 5 versus 10, we would take 10 all day long. So protection does not equal stalling your growth. It should accelerate your growth. But here's the key. You have to be patient. You have to look at your retirement as 30 years, unless you live to 150, and then that throws everything up in the air. But if retirement is going to be 30 or 40 years, you have to look at it over at least every 5 years, or possibly break it into 3 tranches. And each one of those tranches would be a decade. Are we in a growth decade, right? When we hit the Great Recession, that was called the lost decade. Mm-hmm. Well, nobody wants to lose in any decade. You don't want to wake up and go, I grew my money for 8 years and then I gave it all back. Yeah. And it's amazing how forgetful we are. It's almost like, and I don't speak with expertise on this topic, although I do have 5 children, the pain of childbirth. How quickly women forget, right? And yeah, it's like, well, that was painful, but it's done and we have another kid. Do not forget 2008, folks. Do not forget 2002. Do not forget 9/11. Do not forget Black Monday. That's old school. Yeah. That's way back in the day. It will happen again, period. Categorically, I believe, and it's a belief, it's not an absolute, but I believe the markets will rotate down and we will see another 30% loss year or worse. Expect it. Plan for it. You need to protect your money to grow your money, would be my message. So if you want to hear about how we protect money and rotate it back in to maximize growth, call us at 404-341-6767, or you can go online to unleashyourmoney.com. Click on the Portfolio X-ray. That'll get you an easy start where you don't have to do much work. We do it all to present it to you. But protection should equal growth. Do not let your financial advisory team convince you that, well, this is a more protected and safer portfolio. That's why you're not growing your money. Now, month over month, I agree with that. For instance, structured note at 10% is not going to beat what the NASDAQ has done this year. So I totally agree. It's not going to beat CrowdStrike, who's up 78%. But over a period of years, you will, I believe, live a less stressful financial life, a more secure financial life, and that is through our protection rotation strategy. That would be a great opportunity for you to call and say, okay, I've amassed a bunch of wealth over the past 10 years, and now I do not want to give back 30 or 40% of it, but I do want to grow my money, right? So that will be something we task ourselves to do for our clients.
And let me ask you a few questions if you're listening out there. Is your retirement portfolio doing everything that it could and should be doing to help you combat things like we talk about inflation, we talk about a possible recession, and even if you've done an excellent job of saving and growing your money, have you put together a protection rotation strategy? Do you have a distribution plan? If your answer to any or all of those questions is some form of I don't know or not yet, then I urge you to pick up the phone and take Chris and the Hoffman Financial Group up on this offer. You can go to unleashyourmoney.com. You can click on that Portfolio X-ray. You could also give us that call to 404-341-6767. The best, and some would say only way to combat these things is by taking action, by being proactive, and by making sure you have a plan in place that checks all of those boxes and helps you get through all of those scenarios because you've factored those scenarios into the plan.
That's absolutely right. And you mentioned the third key component, which is the distribution plan. I'm amazed at how many people are nearing retirement or even in retirement, and they cannot verbalize and they certainly cannot show us a written distribution plan, and you're going to get whacked on taxes. I just believe this in my heart and my soul. You are going to make mistakes in managing your portfolio, and you are going to get crushed on taxes. We want you to be empowered to pay the minimal amount of tax and avoid substantial taxation. We want to empower you to be in control of the market and take advantage of the growth cycles, but protect yourself during the down markets. Distribution plan is a key. I've mentioned it before. It's worth mentioning again, folks. If you are just pulling out $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, if you're pulling a set number out of your portfolio monthly, you are damaging your portfolio, in my opinion. Period. End of conversation. You need to look at your investable assets as you are now the bank. Okay? So if you're Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you have just opened up Mr. and Mrs. Smith Bank, and people want that money. Mm-hmm. Banks want it, financial institutions want it, and they will pay you for it, right? CDs, prime example. They'll pay you 4.5%, 5%. Money market, it'll pay you 4.5%. Structured notes, it'll pay you 10%. We are a borrower's nation. Use that to your advantage. It does require financial discipline. It requires working with an astute and competent financial advisory team to put that together for you. But now you flip it. When you were 20, 30, 40, and early 50s, you worked for them. You were earning your money. Now they work for you. They owe you a return on your investable dollars. I know you're not a bank in effect, but think of it that way. You control $500,000 or millions of dollars, and financial institutions need that money to keep the economy going and the markets growing, and they will pay you for them. Another example of that is if you own stock, you own a piece of a company, and they owe you a dividend. Well, I use that loosely. They vote on owing you a dividend, but Coca-Cola, prime example, they pay a 4.5%, 5% dividend, and they've paid it for an extended period of time. So there are dividend aristocrats that, in effect, are highly reliable, let's put it that way, on paying you to own a portion of their company. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So think about this. If you've ever seen people interviewed about how to become a millionaire or multimillionaire, they always talk about the first million is the hardest. Mm-hmm. The next million's easy. Why? Because you get to get paid on your million from financial institutions. And that's the big key. We want to empower you to not have to panic over where the market goes, but build a balanced financial plan and, in effect, become the bank where others pay you to hold your money for you.
404-341-6767 is that phone number to get started. You can click on Portfolio X-Ray or Full Financial Plan over on unleashyourmoney.com as well, and we'll be happy to set up a time for you to speak with Chris and his team at the Hoffman Financial Group. Chris Hoffman is an investment advisor representative of Retirement Wealth Advisors, Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. Registered investment advisors and investment advisor representatives act as fiduciaries for all of our investment management clients. We have an obligation to act in the best interest of our clients and to make full disclosures of any conflicts of interest, if any exist. Please refer to our firm brochure, the ADV2A, page 4, for additional information. The Hoffman Financial Group, Retirement Wealth Advisors, Inc., and WSB Radio are not affiliated. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. This information should not be considered tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with a professional specializing in the field of tax, legal, accounting, or investments regarding the applicability of this information for their situation. Any client experiences discussed during the show are unique to that client. They are not meant to imply or suggest you will experience the same results. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Any comments regarding safe and secure products and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing company and are not offered by Brookstone. Hoffman Financial Group is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. Investments will fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Insurance licensed in Georgia, number 163546.